Hi everyone, it's Jessica. Thank you for stopping by my channel today. So today I am anxious to scrapbook this darling photo of my new kitten Atticus, and I've already gone ahead and printed that with a white border. Now I thought that I would use the papers from the Celebrating You collection from Close to My Heart. You can see I'm really holding up the B sides here, which are just kind of neutral, and the other sides have more of a birthday theme to them because it's a birthday themed paper pack. So I'll show you here in the catalog. You can see if you've got some birthday layouts or cards to make, that this is a wonderful paper pack to use with that, along with some of the fun embellishments. But like I said, I'm going to use the other sides so that I can just make a layout for my kitty. So I'm going to go ahead and trim my photo down a little bit, leaving some of that white border around the edge. That way I don't have to mat it. So that was kind of convenient. And I was just been anxious to do a scrapbook layout for Atticus because I recently made a video where I made a scrapbook page for our other new kitten, Petunia, and I just felt like Atticus was left out. So now I have one layout done for each of them, and I'm anxious to create some more as they just, have worked their way right into our lives and our hearts. So I'm going to go ahead and off camera adhere the photo to this lagoon pattern paper. And then I'm working off of a sketch that I found on Pinterest. It is a page map, and that's the look of it right there. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball about how I need this to go, since there aren't any paper dimensions on there. So I think I'm going to cut this paper here, which just has a whole bunch of fun circles and bursts on it, to 11 inches by 6 inches. I don't think it really needs to be a full 6 inches, but that way at least I know I'm going to have it covered and I don't have to worry about it being too short. Now the striped paper that's going to go at the bottom, I'm going to cut that to 3 inches by 11 inches. And then across the center, I will put a piece of sapphire cardstock. So again, since I didn't know what dimensions exactly to use, I just wanted to make sure that I had cut my papers big enough so that whatever piece that I put across here in the middle, it's going to have plenty of room to cover those two ends. So I did cut this a little bit bigger initially, and later you'll see where I pull out a couple of die cuts, and ultimately it ends up being cut down to 5 inches by 12 inches because my die cutting just didn't quite work out for me. So up here, as I'm looking at this, this definitely is going to need a little bit of edge distressing. So I'm going to pull out a foam tool in my sapphire ink because that pattern paper is so light that it just really kind of bleeds right into the French vanilla cardstock that I'm using as my base. So I'll spend just a couple of minutes going around and doing this to all of my papers, including that sapphire piece of cardstock. Normally, I just grab my ink pad and go directly ink pad to paper, but lately I've been trying to just kind of move out of my comfort a little bit and take the time to get out the coordinating foam pad, and it just gives it a different look. It's much softer looking than a direct ink pad to paper. So I've gone ahead and done that to all of the pieces. Now these are my circles thin cuts from Close to My Heart, and I'm sure I'm going to cut a couple of circles out of some of the cardstock that I've got here. And then I'm also going to use this thin cut that says hello. I honestly don't know where it's from, what company it is. It's just in my stash. And then here you can see this is that border that I was referring to. These are the fancy border thin cuts from Close to My Heart. And originally I thought I was going to cut this little scalloped one that has some hearts in it and go just across the top of that sapphire cardstock. But after I did it, it looked terrible. And so I ended up cutting that strip off, and my paper ended up being 5 inches by 12 inches. So here you can see I've gone ahead and done all of my die cutting off screen. Now the hello I cut twice, but before I cut it, I took my Glacier cardstock and I glued 2 pieces together so that when I ran it through, I had 2 pieces of cardstock and 2 pieces of cardstock. So now I'm going to glue both of those cuts together. So my hello will end up being 4 pieces of cardstock high. I really like to do that trick. It's just a fun way to add a little bit of sturdiness to your die cuts and some fun dimension, but not a lot of bulk. So I'm going to set that underneath my block to dry and make sure that that block is going to hold that glue down. And then I'll go ahead and off camera adhere most of those pieces together following that page map inspiration. So this was a really easy layout to put together, and I think even though I'm using a 1 4x6 photo for it, I think that this would be a really fun layout to do with like a row of photos here across the centerpiece of cardstock. So just lots of different options, and I think that I might use the same pattern again for some other photos because I really enjoyed putting it together. All right, I'm going to scatter those circles around, and I am changing things up a little bit from that inspiration piece on Pinterest. Their circles were in different spots. I kind of just like flipped it because I wanted to have that hello title over to the left-hand side, and I felt like if it didn't have something to sit on top of, it was a little bit lost, and so then I decided to put that circle underneath of it. So I'm just kind of changing the placement of the circles from the original layout. And I'm going to take that honey butter little scallop piece and put the one under the top part of the photo and another one maybe down here. I play around with it for a little bit, but ultimately I decide to put it underneath my title so that it has something to sit on. So I'm going to go ahead and get my photo adhered down, and then just to help me glue this tiny little piece underneath of it, I'm going to use my tweezers, add a little bit of liquid glue to the back side, and then just tuck it down under that picture and sliding it into place. Then off camera, I'll go ahead and get my circles adhered down as well. Okay, before I attach the title, I want to do a little bit of stitching to this layout. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my hello title onto the circle and then move it off to the side so that it can dry. And that way I can move that bottom circle around as one piece. Just to help me out when I'm trying to figure things out later. So I'll get that kind of set up and, like I said, move it off to the side so that I can move into the stitching that I want to do. Now, I did something similar to this in one of my mystery envelope layouts, and I'll leave that linked at the end of this video and also down in the description box below. But basically, I'm going to take my circle dies that I used to cut those circles out originally, and I'm going to use them as a guide to poke some holes into my layout. Then I will stitch around them with some embroidery thread, and just to add, a little bit of dimension and texture and some other circles to this layout. So it's pretty convenient since I've got some different sized circle dies. I can kind of lay them out and see, what they might look like once they have the thread in them. It's just a really nice visual. I'm going to tack that one down in place with a little bit of washi tape just in case it wants to shift on me as I'm poking it with my piercing tool. But I'm going around the inside of the die. I've got a little foam mat underneath, and then, like I said, I'll use some of my embroidery thread just to stitch this up. I really love adding stitching to my layouts. It's one of my favorite things to do. I think it's just a really fun little added touch, and it doesn't take that long to do. Now, normally I use just 3 strands of embroidery floss when I am doing my stitching, but I'm going to go for all 6 on this one. So I've actually cut a length of 3 strands, and then I have pulled the ends down so that it's essentially folded in half, tied a knot at the end of them, and that way I've really got 6 strands going on my needle. So it's that 3 doubled up. And then I'm going to come up from the back side, and then this first stitch, I actually messed up. I should have done 2 stitches first because I am going to do a chain link stitch. So normally I like to do that first stitch twice just to double it up. But then starting on the second stitch, when I come up the hole, I am going to slide my needle underneath the stitch I have just made before going back down the same hole, and that's what makes that chain link. I apologize, I didn't do a very good job of getting any of that on camera. It's hard to stitch and hold it for the camera to see at the same time, but again, just when you come up the hole, slide your needle underneath the previous stitch and then go back down the same hole. But like I said, the first stitch that I make, I try to do just 2 normal stitches on it, so that way it has the same amount of thread as the chain link stitches do. Off camera, I went ahead and just put a straight stitch through the bottom of my title piece, And then here you can see all of those fun circles that I have added around the page. I did put some thin 3D foam tape on the back of this title piece because of the dimension that the thread had added, and I thought no sense in trying to fight that and get that flat to the page. I'll just pop the whole thing up a little bit. So I'm going to tuck it over here over the bottom left corner of my photo. And then I had this little same color honey butter cardstock, a little circle in my bowl of random die cuts, and I thought about trying to add it somewhere, but it didn't really fit. What I was thinking was that now I've got honey butter in 2 different spots with those scalloped borders. And I felt like I needed just a little bit more honey butter on this page. So I turned to my freshly baked dots, and if those are still available, I will leave everything linked down below. And I'm using the heart and the circle shape that they come in, and I'm just scattering those around my 3 clusters. So I'll put a couple here in those, and then I'll go up to my top circles, and then also down in the bottom by my title. And so that's just going to be my extra little bit of honey butter to bring in that color. All right, and then I thought it would be fun to take one of my white gel pens. You can see here they come in a pack of 3, so the nibs are all different sizes. I'm going to decide to go for the biggest size nib. I like to pull out a piece of scrap cardstock to make sure my ink is flowing well. And then I'm going to add just a little white detail around parts of my hello. So just a little line or a curved line here or there, kind of following the curve of the text. And you know, when I made that title, I really liked the tone-on-tone look of it. It's the same colored cardstock, the circle and the title. They're both Glacier cardstock, but Close to My Heart's cardstock has a darker shade on one side and lighter on the other. And so I've just flipped it, and I wanted it to stand out just a little bit more. And so I thought that that was like a fun little touch to put that on there. And then I thought, well, I don't really have a whole lot of journaling or anything that really needs to be said here. It's just kind of a photo of my cat who was trying to take a nap and was probably irritated that I was, taking picture after picture of him. But I thought, well, maybe I could add just a little bit of journaling. So I have taken a scrap of French vanilla cardstock, which is the same color white that I have built this layout on, and that's the white and the pattern paper there, and cut a couple of 3/8 inch strips and glued them to my page. Then using my gray lip pen, I really love this. I want to get a couple more colors of these lip pens. They're perfect for journaling or doodling on your pages. I'm just going to add like a little something, kind of saying how much we love having him in our lives, and just happy that he's part of our family. And I'm like, that's good enough. I'll have to look up the date later for the photo and add that to the end of my journaling strip. But at this point, I think I am done. So again, I think that this is a layout that could have other photos on it. You could do a row of 3x4s across that middle strip. But it was just a lot of fun to use my circle dies as guides and add some stitching. Like I said, I did that on a mystery envelope layout a while ago, and I will leave that linked here at the end and also in the description box down below. Anything that I use that is still available will be linked in the description box. So thank you so much for coming by today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and happy crafting. Bye.